चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे
So welcome all to the sixth and final New Perspectives webinar on the spiritual essence of religions and their role in the future development of mankind. We close this series with a discussion on the Bhakti movement in India and its role in the psychic awakening. And with us today are guest speakers, Matthew Andrews from Boston. Welcome, Matthew. Always nice to have you with us. And Sahadev Kumar, who is in Bangkok today. And so it's about 9 o'clock his time. We appreciate, Sahadev, you coming on so late at night and joining us. So welcome both. So I'm Radhe, and I'm joined by Vladimir, and we are both here with the LaGrange Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Fountain Inn, South Carolina. The Bhakti movement was truly a great force that transformed India. It allowed regular people who had been told that they needed a priest to mediate their relationship with God to explore their own spirituality. Bhakti poets and singers cried out in joy and longing, sharing their heart's pain and aspiration for unity with the divine beloved. In this session today, Professor Sahadev Kumar will take us on a pilgrimage of the psychic through words and metaphors of 3 of India's great Bhakti poets over the past 500 years, Mira, Kabir, and Nanak, in their original songs and verses, and in his transcreation in English. An historian of science and cultures, Sahadev Kumar is Professor Emeritus of Bioethics and Environmental Studies at the University of Waterloo, Canada. He is also the author of 7,000 Million Degrees of Freedom and Ocean in a Drop, verses of Weaver Sage Kabir. Sahadev has presented the verses and version of Kabir to over 35 countries on all continents. His new book, Angels in Black Holes, Hope, Light, and Redemption, is expected to be published soon. After Sahadev's talk, then we'll turn it over to Matthew, who will trace the expansion of the Bhakti movement, explore a few renowned compositions, and seek to cultivate and experience together the mood of reverence, devotion, and love for the one creator that is Bhakti. Matthew is co-director of Shraddha Yoga and board president of Auroville International USA. He has been a student of yoga philosophy in the light of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for over 20 years and teaches yoga philosophy in yoga teacher training programs. As a reminder for those that have been with us on this series, Matthew is a keynote speaker at our 4-day Sri Aurobindo Integral Yoga Retreat here in Greenville, South Carolina. And this retreat will be from July 5th to 9th. Our other keynote speakers will include Shraddhalu Ranade, Dr. Lokpande, Nadid, and Vladimir. So we certainly hope to see you all here, and I'll just be putting in the chat box the URL to find out more. But please come and join Matthew and us and our other keynote speakers. So before turning it over to Sahadev, I'd just like to remind everyone that there will be time for questions towards the end, so post your questions in the Q&A box. And again, we appreciate all attendees joining us on this final webinar in this series. So Sahadev, I'd like to turn it over to you at this time.
Well, I'm very happy to share with you some of the wonders and mysteries of 3 poet sages, Mira, Nanak, and Kabir, and their celebration of the divine, all part of the Bhakti movement in India. We may wonder what Bhakti, the celebration of the divine, possibly mean to us today, for 8 billion of us here on Mother Earth in the 21st century. And what could it possibly mean in our psychic awakening, in our spiritual evolution? What is Bhakti, one may ask? What is divine or divinity, love of the divine? What awakens our psyche? Indeed, what is psyche? We have a whole plethora of words and concepts, but what do they really mean to us? One great bhakta, a visionary, a mystic, a yogi, in the 13th century Germany, Meister Eckhart, he said, divinity is an underground river that no one can stop and no one can dam up. Like a great river, Indeed, over millennia, anywhere and everywhere, those who have dared to dive into this river of divinity, the bhaktas, have emerged with pearls of extraordinary beauty that continue to enchant us day after day, year after year, century after century. For millennia, I believe India has been, in many, many ways, a sacred and sumptuous garden, a river, a true Saraswati for some of the great bhaktas, for the lovers of the divine, like Meera, Nanak, Kabir, Chaitanya, Tukaram, Surdas, Akkadevi. In every corner of India, in every age, these and many other seekers and celebrants of the divine, each one of them became a bearer of a special light, a new kind of illumination, a very different kind of X-ray that sees something very different, that could penetrate what seemed utterly unpenetrable. At the age of 16, in 1895, in Switzerland, as a young boy, the great scientist-to-be, Albert Einstein, had wondered, what would the world look like if I were riding a beam of light? His question triggered a revolution in science. A bhakta, a lover of the divine, like Kabir, like Eckhart, like Nanak, like Blake, like Rumi, they wondered and experienced something utterly different. They were not riding a beam of light. They became the light, a new kind of light that has triggered a revolution in everyone who has been touched by it. Lali mere lal ki, jit dekhun tit lal. Lali dekhan main bhi ho gayi lal. The light of my beloved is spread everywhere. When I went to touch it, I too became part of that light. The eye with which I see God, Eckhart said, is the same eye with which God sees me. To become such a light, and what one sees and experiences this new light, is at the very heart of bhakti. The experience of love and ananda, joy, ecstasy, that emanates from such bhaktas, in the words of Sri Aurobindo, are the last word of being, the secret of secrets, the mystery of mysteries. There's nothing, Sri Aurobindo said, which is beyond the reach of a God lover, a lover of God, a true bhakta, or is denied to him, for he is the favorite of the divine lover and the self of the beloved. We have centers of higher learning in many parts of the world, institutes of advanced studies, faculties of arts and humanities. Bhaktas on their spiritual journey spoke of something else. They spoke of and sometimes created a different kind of center of higher learning. They have tried to move us from self-centeredness to a new center of the self. They gave us a new experience of oneness, of unity, of our place in the universe, of Sat Chit Ananda. Tamso ma Jyotiragama. Move me from the darkness to light. They beckoned us to a new kind of light. According to the bhaktas as spiritual gurus, there are many steps in the making of and waking of the psyche. The first step, to have faith that divine is real. However much we proclaim, for most of us, most of the time, divine is not real. Our rituals are real, our fantasies are real, but the divine eludes us all the time. Manaka pherit yugabhaya, gayana manaka pher, karaka manaka chandike, are manaka pher. For years you've been moving the beads in your hand, yet nothing has moved in your heart. Oh, my friend, leave aside the beads. Open your hands, let the heart turn. We have been going to the moon literally, and to the Mars. What about a journey to the sun? It is a different kind of journey that creates an experience of light that is brighter than 1,000 suns. Ghungat ke patkhor ritau ko piya milenge. Remove thy veil, O my beloved, and you will see your lover standing before you. Awake, awake, O sleeper of the land of shadows. Wake, expand. 200 years ago, William Blake spoke like that. Cleanse thy doors of perception. You will see things as they are, infinite. The second step in the journey of every bhakta is seeking the divine as an ardent, passionate quest for the divine. Yoga, reflection, contemplation, prayer, intellect, service, silence, music, they're all in a way attempt to seek the divine. लगा लो मुझे अधरों से अपने कि मैं बांस से बांसुरी बन जाऊं. Oh, my beloved, touch me with your lips. So from a piece of bamboo, I can become a flute. A yogi's body, it is said, is a seeker's body, is like an instrument of music. It is an instrument and a musician and music all becoming one, a holy trinity. In this institute of hard learning, one has to go beyond intellect. Priyatam ko patiyan likhu, jo koi hoye videsh, tan mein man mein nainan mein, taako kaha sandesh. I write letters to my beloved as though he lived far in another land. Oh, how I forget that he lives here in my eyes, in my heart, receiving messages of my love at all times. The third reflection in bhakti, I believe, is the experience of the divine as a lover, as a light. Hari ras yu piya ki baki rahi na thak, baka kalash kumarka, chadyana duji par. So drunk am I with the love of my beloved that all my ambivalence is gone forever. A potter's bowl once baked in the fire is not turned on the wheel again. Master Eckhart said, the eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. The fourth step, I believe, is the celebration of the experience of the divine through poetry, dance, music, silence, service, science, art. All these become truly the celebration of the experience of the divine. Kumbh mein jal hai, jal mein kumbh. Bahir bhitar pani, khuta kumbh jal jal hi samana, yeh tat kahe gyani. I am like a bowl of clay floating in the great ocean of consciousness. Suddenly, with the touch of the master, this bowl is broken. What is inside? What is outside? It is all one. The fifth step, as I see it, that people celebrate the bhaktas, the lovers of the divine. We celebrate just like we celebrate great works of art, of sculpture. Michelangelo's Pieta or David, Auguste Rodin's The Thinker, or the great sculptures in the caves in Ellora and Ajanta, Nataraja. A true bhakta is a different kind of masterpiece. He has become a piece of the master. He has carved himself into a piece of the master. Indeed, he has moved from self-centeredness to the center of the self. जब मैं था तब तू नहीं, अब तू है तो मैं नहीं. प्रेम गली अति सांकरी, इसमा दोना है सुनाई. When my ego was there, your face was hidden from me. Now that I see you, I am no more I. The path of love is much too narrow. Two cannot walk here, only one. So I share with you only very briefly the wonders and insights of three of the great bhaktas, the lovers of the divine in India, Kabir, Meera, and Guru Nanak, and how and why, over the past 5 centuries, they continue to be adored, celebrated, revered, far, far more today than possibly ever before, for their visionary verses, for their eternal message of love and oneness, exquisitely and simply expressed in their songs and couplets, in the most earthy words and metaphors. All three of them, Mira, Nanak, Kabir, are hailed as great poets, as sages, as seers, as visionaries, as inspiring teachers and gurus who opened new windows to an eternal light, and who did so lovingly, melodiously, and above all, courageously, and sometimes defiantly, even outrageously, provocatively. Karma to mala phire, jiva phire mukh mahi, manva to chahundishi phire, are yeh to suman nahi. The beads move in your hand. Your tongue moves in your mouth. Your mind wanders all over the earth. Oh, my friend, don't fool yourself. This is no way to remember the beloved. None of these three poet sages was from a priestly class. None of them was a philosopher or a scholar. None of them was steeped in classicism or in Sanskrit or Persian. None of them was versed in Vedas or in the Upanishads. But all three of them, like many other bhaktas all over India and all over millennia, were ardent lovers of the divine. They spoke from the depths of their heart, their soul, from the joy and ecstasy of their experience of the divine, of divine love. And all three of them, in their own times and over the centuries, deeply touched the hearts and minds of the young and the old, the unlettered and the scholars, the peasants and the stewards, the musicians and the dancers, the poets and the preachers, everyone whose heart throbbed, however little, however much, beyond the mundane, beyond the stultifying powers of worldly pretensions, for a certain glimpse of transcendental beauty of eternal truth. Se padhe padhe ke patthar bhayo, likh likhe bhayon jo eent, kahe Kabir prem ki lago na ekon cheat. Oh, dear friend, what a stone you have become, ever absorbed in intellectual pursuits. Not a drop of love has touched you. Oh, Kabir, remember, without love, it's all worthless and dreary. 400 years ago, in the 16th century, Mirabai, Sant Mira, lit such a fierce lamp of divine love that it continues to illuminate the steps of every man and woman who has sought to discover the joys of love. Mira, like the great sages over 2,000 years ago, the Buddha and the Mahavira, came from a princely family in Rajasthan. Married at a young age, according to the customs of the day, into another princely family, Mira was, in her heart and soul, and no less in her body and mind, married to no man, any man, however handsome, however strong, however princely. She refused to be married to any man here on earth, but only to Giridhar, to Krishna, the divine lover. Mere to Giridhar Gopal, dusra na koi, jaake sir mor mukat, mero pati soy. Krishna alone is my lover. He alone is my husband. No one else, no one else. What a scandal such an assertion by a young bride of a prince would cause in a palace 400 years ago. One can only imagine. The scandal it was, an utter outrage, never heard of, never imagined. It is this outrage, this defiance of worldly power and authority, that is, I believe, at the heart of bhakti, of true lovers of the divine. It is said that those who are in love with power can never understand the power of love. It is thus that princes and kingdoms have come and gone, but the power of divine love that Mira celebrated endures, thrives decade after decade, century after century. Ansuvan jal sincha sincha, prema beli boy, bhakt dekh raji bhai, jakt dekh roi. With ever-flowing tears of my longing, I have nourished this vine of love. Lovers of the divine rejoice in it. Wielders of the power trample over it. हेरी मैं तो प्रेम दीवानी, मेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, घायल गति घायल जाने, जो कि घायल होए. Oh, am I so intoxicated in love? Who can comprehend such joyous anguish? Only he who is struck with the arrows of such love. Only he, only he. Over these 4 centuries, Mira's love for Krishna, sung in hundreds of songs, has come to be the most exquisite and eternal expression of love, that underlying longing for love in every human heart, since time immemorial and forever. Krishna is, of course, the embodiment and spirit of eternal love. He is in the very heart and soul of India. His presence is eternal. Mira was a lover of the divine, of Krishna. She saw his presence everywhere. For her, all who loved Krishna were gopis. They were all brides, brides of Krishna, as nuns are brides of Christ. In these 400 years, Mira has been and continues to be an essential and most enchanting part of the ever-throbbing soul of India. Her songs are sung by one and all, by great musicians, by peasants, by brides, by dancers, by lovers. Her life is portrayed and celebrated in films, in plays, in paintings, in fables. There is rarely any other woman in the spiritual history of the world who has touched so many and for so long and so deeply, so enchanting as Mira has done. Mira is indeed immortal. She's forever. In the 15th century, in year 1469, descended a great luminary in India who opened yet another eternal door to the divine. His name was Nanak. He came to be known, loved, honored, and revered as Guru Nanak Dev. He's the first guru and the founder of Sikhism, a faith and a movement that thrives all over the world, but most abundantly in India, in Punjab. To love the divine, he surmised, is to love all humans, whoever they are and however they are, and in fact, to love and celebrate all creation. Prabhu mere pritam pran pyare. The divine is my true lover, he said. On one occasion, Nanak fell asleep with his feet towards Makkah. A mullah was outraged. He reprimanded him. So Nanak replied, if you think I show disrespect by having my feet towards the house of God, tell me where God does not dwell. Guru Nanak traveled far and wide, to Ladakh in the Himalayas, and to Makkah in Saudi Arabia, to Assam in the east, and to southernmost tips of India, always spreading the message of oneness everywhere, to everyone. Guru Nanak's padas, verses, and songs, all part of Guru Granth Sahib, celebrate the message of love and oneness again and again and again. They're recited and sung most melodiously all over the world in hundreds of gurudwaras in the Sikh temples. Nanak stressed, as all lovers of the divine have done time and again, that no heart that shuts out truth and love can be the abode of God. No word, however noble, no symbol, however significant, can communicate the ineffable experience of being absorbed in the dazzling light of divine. Akhat kahani prem ki kach kaha na jaye, gunga keri sarkara khaye aur muskaye. Ah, a song of love has burst forth, yet what silence has descended upon me. Like a dumb man, having tasted the sweetest of fruits, I can merely smile, but say nothing. A little before Guru Nanak, and 100 years before Mira, there was Kabir, on the banks of holy river Ganga in Kashiji, the holy city of Benares, present-day Varanasi. Since my discovery of him, of Kabir, some 40 years ago, in the mountains of Canada, in British Columbia, I must confess, Kabir has been and continues to be my spiritual companion, my guru, my inspiration. He says, Priyatam ko patiyan likhu, jo koi hoye videsh, tan mein man mein nanan mein, aako kaha sandesh. I write letters to my beloved as though he lived far in another land. Oh, how I forget that he resides here in my eyes, in my heart, receiving messages of my love at all times. Kabir was a poor, marginalized weaver, completely unlettered, and at the lowest rung of any social and class ladder. He may have been born a Muslim, no one is sure. He himself didn't care. He said, Hindu to main hu nahi, Musalman bhi nahi, Panch Tantva ka putla, Khelat jelat mahi. Oh, dear friends, neither a Hindu nor a Muslim am I. A mere ensemble of 5 elements is this body, where the spirit plays its drama of joy and suffering. Kabir was utterly unfamiliar with the Hindu or Muslim scriptures, totally untutored in any philosophy or scholarship, yet so scintillatingly illuminated by the true existential experience of the divine. 500 years ago, in the 15th century, for an unlettered, poor, marginalized weaver at the lowest rung of social and caste ladder, it was not easy. In fact, it was preposterous to speak of any experience of the divine, of Brahma Gyana in the holy city of Kashiji, so filled with scholars and pandits, and so laced with Hindu orthodoxy. But Kabir had the daring to do so with certain bold terseness that has endeared him to all lovers of the divine for over 5 centuries. He said, "Main kehta aankhan ki dekhi, tu kehta pothi ki lekhi, main kehta sarja pana hai, tu rakhyo aur jhai re, tera mera milan kaise hi khoi re. I say only what I've seen with my own eyes. Oh, Pandit, you keep quoting the scriptures. I say he's everywhere, but you keep hiding him in the books. How can our paths cross?" One most formidable lesson one learns from the lives of the all bhaktas, lovers of the divine, in India, indeed in the world at large, is that those who love truly do not waver in the face of distractions. More than any other bhakta poet in India, possibly in the world, Kabir has spoken of the temptations and delusions to which human spirit so often succumbs, with a terseness and satire rarely to be found so sumptuously in world literature. Kabir, the daring to expose the arrogance and the hypocrisies of the religious and the political powers that be. He did so unflinchingly and again and again. Over the years, he paid a big price for it. He was ostracized, maligned, threatened, tortured, but he persevered relentlessly and daringly, making him a great martyr of truth and divine love. Kabir's such is for the real. Anyone who falsifies the real or indulges in loud incantations is not a true seeker. He said, "Oh, wanderer, what pilgrimage are you on? Where do Ganga and Yamuna flow? They flow within the ocean of your own consciousness. That's where one must dive. All else is mere wandering in the desert, lost and desolate." Kabir sings ceaselessly of the oneness of all beings. From one light, all has come to be. His unitary vision encompasses everything, heaven and earth, the animate and the inanimate, the past and the future, all touched with the same whiff of spring. Kabira kuan ek hai, pani bharai anek, bhande hi mein bhed hai, Pani sab mein ek. O Kabir, the divine is one great well from where we all draw the same sustenance. Many different pots, but the water within is the same in all of us. At a time when the divisions of caste and class, of distrust and animosity between the Hindus and the Muslims marred all notions of brotherly love and oneness, Kabir sang of unity that transcended all distinctions. He said, Abli Allah Nuru Paya, Kudrati ke sab bande, Ek Nur se sab jag uptiya, Are kaun bhale aur kaun mande. The light of the divine is spread everywhere. We are all children of the same creator. Oh, dear friend, from one light all has come to be. Who's good? Who's bad? These are all phantoms of your own mind. So in sharing some of these wondrous, beautiful words and images of divine love, oneness, of Swamasi, of Dawatat, of Satchitananda, of the three of the great bhaktas of India in the past 500 years. I have tried to fathom some of the secret of secrets, the mystery of mysteries that Sri Aurobindo spoke of. I believe these great poet sages, Mira, Nanak, Kabir, have been essential in waking the psyche of India, as Sri Aurobindo and the mother have been in our times. Such clarion calls for waking are always being made all over the earth, though not always heard. Among those who sleep, each one lies in his own world. Only those who are awake have a world in common. So said a Greek philosopher, Heraclitus, some 2,500 years ago. Jin pavan bhui bhau phirai, humain desa vides, piya milan jab hoya, angan bhaya vides. In search of my beloved, oh dear friends, I wandered all over the earth, in far and distant lands, but now, on meeting with him, my own courtyard became the whole universe. Indeed, we may go to the moon or to the Mars and explore billions of galaxies, billions of light years away. But for all of us, children in the city of dawn, as I see our will to be, our real journey is in the sun, is to the sun. Real journey is to the sun. If such a tiny seed in such dark, dingy waters can rise to become such a beautiful lotus, what might not you and I wonder, become in our journey to the sun? The Bhakti movement is forever going on. Spiritual journey is our essential pilgrimage. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahadev, very much for this very deep and important look, and for your quotations, for your reading of this beautiful, amazing poetry, which is all igniting in us that love, you know. As Sri Aurobindo says, the one who loves the divine is loved by the divine. And this is the greatest creation of the divine. The bhakta is the creation, as you said. Krishna says to Arjuna, Name bhakta pranashyati. My bhakta never perishes. It's the creation of the divine. This was wonderful. Thank you. Very deeply touching the heart. And we are very grateful to you for this presentation. There will be questions and answers at the end session. So before that, we will listen to Matthew. Matthew, please take the charge.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Vladimir's gratitude for Dr. Kumar. I've had the privilege of sitting with him in person and hearing him recite with musical accompaniment, and quite a treat. His comprehensive knowledge and understanding of history and the ability to weave together these strands of beauty from India's history is really, really something. And as I was listening, I was feeling how these luminous giants of spirituality, Mira and Kabir and Nanak, they become what they speak about. They become the bhakti that they teach. So it's not just words that they're offering, but their lives represent and offer kind of a conduit that we can touch and find within ourselves, touch and be touched. You know, find within ourselves this spirit of bhakti that they're offering. The Narada's Bhakti Sutras says that bhakti is tvasmin parama prema rupa. The substance, the form of the greatest love in this. And in this, you know, in this world, the greatest love in the cosmos, the greatest love in the manifest universe, the greatest love in the divine reality, the greatest love. And it is of the nature of Amrit, the nectar of immortality. So that love is not something abstract. It's not something that, you know, we can look at these pieces of art that have been created and passed down, these poems and songs, and appreciate them. We can see them as objects of appreciation and beauty, but they're meant to touch us. They're meant to reach through the fabric of reality into our hearts, through whatever armor we have created and, you know, whatever confusion living in a state of duality has created for us, whatever darkness and anger and resentment have grown inside of us, whatever cynicism. I mean, in this modern world, I think that's the most common one. Cynicism. Oh, nothing will ever change. Oh, it's such a mess. Everybody's always fighting. These luminaries of the divine have created their works and embodied this bhakti in order to reach through all of that and touch the core of our being and say to us, no matter what is going on outside, no matter what things might look like, this divine one is here, right next to you, as close as your own breath, closer than the blood within your own heart that's beating right now. The divine never leaves you, has created you, is inside of you, is shining out through you. And their words are meant to enable us to experience that. I want to share with you a quote from the mother that really seemed to me to capture this essence and also contextualize it within the frame of cosmology. She said, this is from Words of the Mother, when consciousness separated from its origin and became inconscience. So this is, you know, contextual framework that includes all of creation. When consciousness separated from its origin and became inconscience, the origin emanated love to reawaken consciousness from the depth of inconscience and bring it back into touch with its origin. So this is fundamental. This is, you know, the original, because when consciousness separated from its origin and became inconscious, the beginning of creation. That's the beginning of the unmanifest becoming the manifest. At that point, when that happened, the origin emanated love for the purpose of reawakening consciousness from the depth of inconscience. So as soon as that break happens, love is emanated in order to bring those two back together, to bring inconscience, to awaken consciousness from the depths of inconscience and bring it back in touch with its origin. The mother said, it may be said that at its origin, love is the supreme power of attraction, which awakens in response the irresistible need of an absolute self-giving. So she's saying it's two things: the supreme power of attraction, that which draws us to what we love, and the irresistible need of an absolute self-giving. The irresistible, it cannot be resisted. Eventually, no matter how hard we try, no matter how hard the forces of delusion and confusion try to prevent it from happening. It is irresistible. The need for an absolute self-giving. This is seeded in the cosmos, and it is seeded inside of us. The need, the irresistible need of an absolute self-giving, to offer myself. When I love someone, something, the divine, a person, an animal, a plant, a stone, when I love, there's this need that's embedded in that love to offer myself, to give myself. Now, when we talk of love, colloquially with each other, in modern culture, let's say, we're also often talking of a mixture, kind of like a smoothie with a lot of different ingredients. There's some greed, there's some lust, there's some need, there's some clinging, there's some craving, there's some frustration, there's some resentment. There's all these things mixed in. And inside of all of those things, separate from all of those things, there is this love. And what this love is the supreme power of attraction, coupled with the irresistible need of an absolute self-giving. The mother says that these are the two poles of the urge toward complete fusion. She uses the word fusion. We could use the word yoga. We could use the word union. They are the two poles of the urge toward complete fusion. The supreme power of attraction, which awakens in response the irresistible need of an absolute self-giving. And the mother says, no other movement could, better and more surely than this, throw a bridge across the abyss dug by the sense of separation that comes from the formation of the individual. Does that sound familiar? A sense of separation that comes from the formation of the individual. So as an individual, he's saying this is inherent. This is part of the situation here. As an individual, there is an inherent sense of separation, and she calls it an abyss dug by the sense of separation that comes from the formation of the individual. This is not your fault. The fact that you feel separate from the divine, you feel separate from your friends, you feel separate from your family, at a certain level, there's a sense of separation that comes from the formation of the individual. It's inherent. And the thing that throws a bridge across the abyss is love. The mother says it was necessary to bring back to itself what had been projected into space without destroying, for this purpose, the universe created thus. That is why love sprang up, the irresistible power of union. This is seeded into everything, into every molecule of creation, into every human heart, into everything. This is why love sprang up. The purpose of love is the irresistible power of union, and bhakti is the embodied experience of this. It's drawing into ourselves, drinking in, drawing up into our conscious awareness, this irresistible power of union, the irresistible need of absolute self-giving, the supreme power of attraction. This, in my estimation, is the definition of bhakti. Partaking of this primordial, fundamental, cosmic attraction and draw towards self-giving. When I love someone, I'm naturally inclined to prioritize their needs above my own, to give myself to them. It's natural, it's not forced. When it's natural, as I said before, we've got all kinds of different things that we call love that get all mixed up in this. But when it's true love, when it's real love, there's a prioritization of the needs of the other. And when it's love, in a way, the other's needs are never separate from our own. And they're never separate from the needs of the whole. the needs of the whole cosmos, the needs of the whole earth, the needs of the whole nation, the needs of the whole community. So this self-offering is an offering of my individual self towards the thing that I love, whether it be a person, a community, a nation, the earth, or the cosmos. I offer myself, all that I am, all that I hold, all my ideas, all my capacities, all my skills. I offer them to that which I love. This bhakti sprung up in the fertile soil of India. Now, I'm not a historian, and so I am not going to get into the question of whether this bhakti movement, often when people talk about the bhakti movement, they're talking about, the 14th to 19th centuries or some kind of time frame in there where these beings, Kabir, Mira, Nanak, Chaitanya, were speaking, living, teaching. Something that is often forgotten in that picture. Well, two things. Number one is the Rig Veda Samhita is a bhakti text, as far as I can tell. It's a crying out to the divine, an invocation of the divine. Of course, it's not just about hymns of adoration to the divine and all the many qualities and personalities of the divine. It's more than that, but it is also essentially a bhakti text. And also in the first millennium in Tamil Nadu, there were bhakti poets singing praises of Shiva. Tirumular said, Anbe Shivam. He said, those who do not yet understand think that love and God are two. Anbe in Tamil is love. Anbe Shivam, God is love. They do not understand that love is God and God is love. When one truly knows that God is love, they remain truly in the love that is God. So this is, deeper, older, present in the soil of India and in the south before this larger movement in the north. But what we can say, regardless of whether we're thinking about Tamil Shiva Bhakti or Krishna Bhakti in the Chaitanya tradition that has spread all over the world through the Hare Krishna movement today, whatever kind of bhakti we're talking about, we can say that the revolution, the movement, was from a formulaic relationship to spirituality, a relationship in which there needed to be a mediator, there needed to be a priest in between. And you can see this in all religions where there's this stratification, division. The priest is the one who knows the secret things, and we have to pay the priest, and the priest is the intermediary. To a spirituality that is very close and personal and intimate, where I in my own self, you in your own self, can reach into our own hearts and touch the essence of divinity and speak to the divine beloved and listen to the divine beloved and be embraced by the divine beloved. And as Professor Kumar aptly shared, the ones who spoke thus were often ostracized, beaten, tortured, suppressed in all kinds of ways. And you could say this about all of the significant bhakti teachers and poets, that they faced challenge. Society said no. This is not the way it could be. On the intimate level, Chaitanya had to face his own mother when he left. It's the sadness of his own mother who didn't want him to go. And there's a play that Dilip Kumar Roy wrote called Chaitanya. He also wrote a play about Mira, but he wrote a play about Chaitanya in which he characterizes this. And the mother says, I cannot see, child, what will happen when you, my one world, leave me, wandering back to your great worlds, leaving no world for me. She's expressing, no, don't go. And Mira, in the play about Mira, Dilip Kumar Roy says that the pundits say, behave yourself or we will ostracize you. So, you know, there's this society saying no, whether it's the family, the community, or whatever, no. And in response to his mother, Chaitanya, in Dilip Kumar Roy words says, his flute call, stronger than destiny, now wrenches me away from you and all that I cherish still. I have heard the call. I know not yet the goal, but this I know, that you, who have given me to earth, that I may bring to her his love. He's saying this to his mother. You who have given me to earth, so that I may bring to her, the earth, his love, Krishna's love. Losing your claim on me, if, he's saying, mother, if you lose your claim on me, you would be holding me closer than ever you could by clinging fast to me. For the little world of worldliness and clamor to which I have been an alien since my birth. So holding me is not the way to hold me. The way to hold me, the way to be close to me, is to release me to my destiny. I have heard the call, but I know not yet the goal. And this is a common experience for those who are reaching directly for the divine and wanting to share that with others, wanting to offer to others. You know, he's saying, you, to his mother, you have given me to the earth that I may bring to her his love. He sees himself as a vessel, as an instrument of the divine, reaching through from the invisible into the visible, creating a bridge, creating a pathway between that which experiences itself as individuated and separate, as alone and isolated, with the bridge to that which is one, eternally and wholly and completely is one. And he is the vessel, the instrument of that love. And he suffered a great deal. And there's that self-offering, the irresistible need for self-offering that Chaitanya embodied. And there's one more thing that I just want to touch on here as far as the movement of bhakti and its effect on the world. And that is embodied in Chaitanya's experience with the two drunks, Jagai and Madhai. He encounters these two drunks and they're abusing him. And, you know, he says to them, choose to be drunk not only with the vicious wine, but what is far worse. He says, no, I pity you, my friend, since you choose to be drunk not only with vicious wine, but what is far worse, with these fatal fumes of pride, which blind you to Sri Krishna's love, the love I have come here to pledge. These are rowdy, big, strong, drunk guys. And Chaitanya is saying to them very directly, I pity you. And they, you know, the response, how dare you call me drunk fool? This is characterized by Dilip Kumar Roy, but it's generally understood as a historical event. And they beat Chaitanya. And then Chaitanya's disciples come and they pull off the drunks and they start beating the drunks. And Chaitanya rushes in and says, no, no, for the love of me, leave them alone. Who deals them a blow has never accepted me. And one of his disciples is saying, you, hell's own henchmen to the drunks who have come disguised as men to murder heaven. Look, he's bleeding. And Chaitanya says, a little blood has spilt out since I had too much of it. And the Lord doubtless deemed, as my Lord doubtless deemed, a little blood has spilled out from me since I had too much of it, as my Lord doubtless deemed. And then he says, draw near, brothers. You have nothing to fear. To the drunks, he says, I stand security for you. I hope you're not hurt. So he rebukes his followers for assaulting these people who were beating him. And then he says, come, it's okay. To them, hey, give them some water. Look, they're groaning. Now come to me. I'll take you home. But wait, first let me embrace you. Have no fear. No one will lay hands on you now that you are armored in my love. My Lord gave me to soothe and heal all suffering souls who cry, for they are blind. So Chaitanya is not only embodying love for the divine as a being out there, love for the divine as a being to be worshipped in its divine form, He's embodying love for the divine that is in all. He sees the divine being in these two men, Jagai and Madai. He recognizes in them the divine spark, and he rushes to protect that spark, to embrace that spark, to give that spark room to breathe. And this, I fear, is something that we often overlook and lose. And it's something that was part of this eruption of bhakti in India in the particular times that it happened, and also throughout the scope of time. This wanting, this self-offering that comes in the form of first courage to say to the drunks, hey, stop it, I pity you, you're drunk. You know, in a dangerous situation, this courage, and then this protection. Hey, no, don't hurt them. Don't beat them. Love them, because that's what they need. And too often, we treat our enemies with disdain and resentment and disgust, instead of first with pity and then with love and offering. And not pity that puts them down, but pity that says, hey, stand up. Come on, you're demeaning yourself. You don't need to do that. You don't need to be there. The love of a brother or a sister or a mother or a father who's intervening on behalf of that divine soul embodied in human ignorance and suffering. This, I feel, is one of the biggest outpourings of the bhakti movement. It's the physical manifestation of this self-offering that embodies in relationships with people. And it's something that in our world today is desperately needed. More, we don't have to agree with everyone. We don't have to condone people's behaviors towards themselves or towards others, but to remain at the ready to love them and offer them love is to honor the lives of those who have been teachers and embodiments of bhakti in the past. And I believe the time is up, so I'll close there and invite any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. Very, very interesting observations with the mother's creation and how love came down to push us out and to find the oneness, the intensity of oneness in the separated world, in this individual form. By the way, she also in other ways speaks about the Supreme possessing himself in his supreme identity, but he wanted to experience himself in unity. And that generated for him the additional ananda. That additional ananda is exactly bhakti. It is a very special love of sharing. Sharing when we are not one, sharing oneness. And that's why that root bhaj, to share, it actually is the first meaning of sharing. From here, bhaga, the delight of sharing. From here, Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the one who possesses all the delight of sharing among all the beings. From here, even Bhagya, the destiny, as your share for delight. And that delight is nothing but the experience of the divine. And so we are sharing the experience of the divine through all our interactions in the world. And if we see it in this way, of course, it changes the whole perspective on our life. Sri Aurobindo somewhere also says to hate the sinner is the greatest sin, because the sinner needs love, as you rightly said. He needs care. He is already in the position of sickness and disease, and he needs cure and not the condemnation or something else or hate. So thank you for sharing these fundamentals of our Bhakti movement, which is the crown of the whole movement of spirituality in India, and which led us finally to the Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, and Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. These are, and many more great sages and visionaries. So, since we do not have any questions, I would love us to maybe share a few thoughts among ourselves, kind of post in our after presentation time. Maybe some new thoughts came to us, to Sahadev and to you. So please share them with us.
You're muted, Sahadev. And yes, and if anybody would have a question, I know Victoria and Eli, you did have your hands up. Oh, there goes a question. So you can type it in the Q&A, or we can bring you over. But sorry, go ahead, Sahadev.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity of sharing, because the more I visit many places, different parts of the world, and meet people from different cultural, linguistic, racial backgrounds, I feel truly the differences between us is so trivial. What is common between us is so important. Really, our true humanity, our spirit is so far more important. And all other things seem truly trivial. And if we begin to understand that, begin to share this, begin to realize this every moment of our life, I think it's a wonderful discovery. And our brotherhood, our sisterhood, this brothering and othering, I call the phenomenon of making the other as the other. This is at the heart of love, I feel. Caring, sense of respect, courtesy, consideration, acknowledgement. I do a series of workshops on forgiveness, yoga, forgiveness, and trying to see what is it that hurts people and how do people respond to the hurt. And it's a long history in our human civilization. And I feel these are all very much linked to our understanding of all dimensions of love and care and courtesy and acknowledgement. So I'm very happy to be part of this particular session.
Thank you. There is a question here. Do you have a recommended English translation of Kabir?
Well, if I may boast myself, I wrote my first book on Kabir called The Vision of Kabir, came in 1984. That's almost 40 years ago. And it has gone through many editions. And my new book is coming out, just being printed in the next few weeks, called Ocean in a Drop, again, verses of Kabir. And now it's being translated in 10 different languages. And my friend Anandi from Auroville, she's Chinese, she's in China at present. She has translated Kabir into Chinese. And she's most likely, I will be visiting China in August and presenting Kabir in Hindi, in English, and Chinese. And so many translations. Sometimes I feel we need to be careful. I don't call my translations a translation, I call them transcreation. Because I feel in poetry is translated literally, it kills it. And a good example of it is Rabindranath Tagore's translation of Gitanjali. He wrote it in Bengali, and then he was invited by the famous Irish poet Yeats to translate it to English, and he translated it himself. And what is very important to notice that the English translation is very different from the original. And it's done by the same poet. And the original is in a song form. It is Gitanjali, a bouquet of songs. An English translation of it is a poetic prose. The same is true of Rumi. Rumi is, I'm told, the most popular poet in the US, in the Western world. But nobody, and I haven't met anybody who's studied it in the original or knows the original. It's all in translation. And it's often quoted in small quotations, 2 lines, 3 lines. but I have presented Kabir hopefully in a poetic prose, not in a original form. So it's very important. I feel so. And I must say there have been some translations in USA and some other countries of Kabir, which are, if I may use the strong word, quite atrocious, quite bad. And it's quite a bit of an insult to Kabir. So these are things to be cautious about.
So better to an original language and try to read it in the original language.
Of course, if you read in the original, it's just wonderful. It's a great gift.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments, and we are looking forward to your edition. So yes, there was one idea which you brought forward, which was quite interesting and provoking. What is this hate and pain and need of love? This, because this is a distortion of the same movement of love in a way. Yes, it's something which is narrowed down by darker consciousness, the same intensity of love and joy and bliss. Yes, and a need of having it more, and that creates suffocation and suffering. And so basically the same origin creates all those kind of perverse forms due to the lack of consciousness. What do you think about this? Matthew especially, he's a philosopher here. Yeah.
As I understand the question, you're asking about the perversion of bhakti or of love, huh?
Yes. What is
like
hate?
The reverse. What is hate? Hate, you think about Ramayana or Ramacharita more specifically, right? Where Tulsidas is explaining the background of Ramayana. And who is Ravana? And what happens to Ravana after he passes away? He's touched by Ram, and I forget Professor Kumar may know the word off the top of his head better than I do, but there's a specific word for the bhakti of the villain, the bhakti of the one who hates the divine. Would be characterized as the bhakti of Hamsa in Krishna's case, or the bhakti of Ravana in Ram's case. But this hate is love. I mean, you used the word the kind of reverse, but it's an obsession at a certain level. Ravana was obsessed with Sita, and in the same way with Ram. And Hamsa was obsessed with Krishna. And it's love that is imbued with a primal fear that's related to the experience of separation and isolation. That's a part of duality. That's a fundamental part of the confusion of duality. So I experience myself as separate and in competition with other separate beings for limited resources. And so I have an existential fear. And the Divine One comes and draws all of that existential fear, all of the darkness inside of me up into a head, and then I embody that and act it out, and that is hatred. And in a way, that's the healing for Ravana. That's how he is, it's like he's completely purified through all of the darkness in him being brought up in such an intense way into his consciousness that at the moment that Ram touches him, it releases and he's free. And we don't all have the benefit, if we could call it that, of such an intense release, an immediate release. But I think we all can relate to the experience of variations of hatred, which result as because of purification, the process of purification. In order to release something, in order to release the experience of separation, in order to release the experience of isolation and duality, in order to release all the karmic baggage that partakes of those qualities, it has to come into consciousness. There's rare instances where it can just be diffused in a second. And we all, especially in the New Age movement, we look for those. Can't somebody just take all my karmic baggage and, offload it for me really quickly? I'll pay for it, that's in the New Age movement, there's a lot of that. But in reality, healing has to happen by these qualities coming up into consciousness so that they can be released. And in the case of Ravana, in the case of hatred in general, that's what this is these qualities coming up into consciousness in a very profound, intense way so that they can be released. And that's what we often don't recognize is the so that, because we're so confronted with the hatred itself. And individuals are purifying and the earth is purifying. And sometimes there's individual, the earth in Ramacharita Manasa, the earth cried out to Vishnu in the form of a cow saying, please come, I can bear the weight of the oceans and the mountains, but I can't bear the weight of what humans are doing to each other. It's too much, will you please come? And Vishnu comes and incarnates as Ram, and the purification of the earth is what happens in that ultimate conflict between Ram and Ravana. So it's not just about Ravana as an individual person, but it's about a collective purification and release on the global level. And all ages see these kind of surges of purification happen. And so, hatred is a part of that.
Thank you. Very beautiful explanation, actually. Sahadev, do you have some ideas? You are having workshops for healing, no?
Well, yeah, I do. They often said, we say it in many countries, in many cultures, that love is blind. And then the other side, the hatred is blind as well. In love, when we are blind because we don't see anything negative, weak, or unlikable in the other person, or in things we are drawn to. And in hatred, we don't see anything good in the other, a complete negation. So both are incredible powers. And more I see in my workshops, in my own life experiences, so many people have such a low self-image. They feel they're not lovable. How can anybody love them? They're not lovable. So I feel strongly that to love anybody or to feel loved, the first thing is to love yourself. And to love yourself is to accept yourself with all one's frailties and warts and all weaknesses. And our cultures, our civilizations everywhere, they're constantly judging us, constantly, all the time. Everybody in the family, the brothers, the teachers, the schools, the institutions, constantly judging. The love is not, or recognition or acknowledgement or respect is not part of our cultural trait in any part of the world. So I feel these are all a whole spectrum here. Love, hatred, indifference, acknowledgement, courtesy, generosity. They're all part of the whole spectrum of life.
Thank you. Great ideas. Thank you for sharing these. They are very important for us in these times, how to find that true, exchange of the higher values of love, which is actually experiencing the divine in different forms, in different relations. What is bliss? What is Ananda? Is actually experiencing the divine, nothing else. So we are looking for it in everything, in knowledge, in action, in relations, and so on. Yes. Thank you so much for this beautiful crowning, of the whole thing. And we are looking forward to meet with you in the body here with Matthew and Sahadev. Maybe he will be traveling towards us. Yeah. Looking forward to meet you here also in the US.
Yes. It'll be a pleasure. It'll be wonderful. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you also very much. Namaste.
Thank you both. Thank you both.